My name's Ceri Bevan and I live just outside the village of Talybont in the old forestry cottages as they're known. I was actually born in Penkethly in 1967, moved away but I came back to the village in 2002.
My name's Clare Wright and I live in the old schoolmaster's house next to the school, which is now shut in the village. I was originally from London but married a Welshman. Homing instinct, came back and we ended up in Talybont and had our children there. We've been living there for 26 years.
My first memory really of the hall, I was at a pony club party. Can you believe? So all our village halls used to have discos in the late 70s and early 80s, generally on a Friday night. And yeah, one of my fondest memories actually is sort of like going to one of my very first pony club parties at probably the tender age of 12. But that was regularly held in Henderson Hall.
Coming from London, this is quite a different thing for me. We didn't have the same sort of community things happening. So it was quite interesting for me to move into the village all those years ago and see how things were happening at the hall and how it brought people together. And my children absolutely loved the children's Christmas parties that were historically a huge part of Henderson Hall. So we've both been involved with Henderson Hall as individuals and also with the project that was Totally Talybont. I was involved with Totally Talybont through being part of the hall committee, the village hall, and it was something that Ceri and I then worked together on through Ceri's involvement in the recreation club, which I'm sure Ceri will tell you about now.
I'd been discussing with Sarah and Margaret about the terrible state of the tennis courts, and we were desperate to try and get some way of resurrecting those. So we got together with a few mums and organised a recreation group as a fundraising group. And at the same time, Claire, you were busy on the hall.
Yes, I was doing hall things, trying to get the hall more sustainable, trying to work out how we could get more energy efficient. Both Ceri and I decided that it would be a good thing to actually try and join forces and get the recreation side of the village and the hall community hub together. And that kicked off some reports and surveys and community discussions, didn't it?
Yeah, because there was the brownies, there was the cricket, and it just made sense for all of us to work together really, and come up with a bigger, better project. It was a bit scary because there was lots of money involved, but we broached the community council and they were really on board with it.
Yes.
And then we just set up a steering group of different members from the community council. There was ourselves from our representative groups and a few others, and then some other sort of like local interest people, my sister who's a consultant in Welsh Government and various other people. And we started off with the surveys and finding out what people really wanted.
I mean, it all started in 2011, maybe just a bit before that actually. Ceri got a ROSPA report done on the playground and it was condemned. So that was a major factor for us wanting to start something off. The village hall had a 2,000 square metre flat roof, which again was condemned, and we realised that if we didn't do something soon, then that part of the community hub was going to have to shut. And as Ceri has previously mentioned, the Community Council were really, really good at being prepared to be the umbrella group to facilitate us being able to apply for a big lottery fund. And that big lottery fund ended up being the Totally Talybont project that encompassed all the things that we wanted to do. So it was the playground, the village hall, things that also expanded out into the tourism part of the village too. So the toilets had been shut. Yeah. We have a massive load of visitors who come in, cyclists, and so we decided to do a big project.
All dancing. And it included the trim trail as well, which has been another fantastic addition to it. There was a bit of groundswell anyway, because there was a lot of interest. We had, with the rec group, we had Over the Bars, which was the young people of the village who were desperate. Their little bike ramp had been taken apart and we'd got a replacement for that. But they were really, really desperate for sort of like the activity side of things. We'd also had plenty of sort of consultation with the village. We had meetings and we had sort of like tea and chat. And then at various other events we'd go along to. So if there was an event in the hall, we'd take our little surveys along with us, and we'd just ask people what they felt about the hall, what they thought could be improved with the hall, and the same with the playground outside. A lot of people were saying that they were having to travel to take part in either activities or go and use facilities for outdoor activity. So that was a key factor for sure.
Yeah, I mean, one of the aims was to make all the facilities accessible without having to travel, and to keep people within the community and build a better community spirit, because once people start leaving the village to do things, it just breaks everything down, and you lose that sense of place, really.
Before we applied to the lottery, there was some Sustainable Development Fund involvement with the...
particularly for the hall and for the energy efficiency drive. You know, we had all the lighting, all energy efficient lighting put into the hall, which was through the Sustainable Development Fund. It helped us actually get the big lottery grant, because it was proving that we were really making inroads to trying to become more sustainable. We've got PV panels on the hall. We had you know, the community car club was using that as well, which was great with the electric car. Air source heat pumps were put into the hall as well, and Talybont Energy was very progressive with helping towards that too. That was one of the big drives. They helped us to become more efficient. But structurally, the hall was still struggling, so it needed a lot more money spent on other things to keep it going and to keep the doors open.
So it was really, really important that we got as much information from the community and anybody sort of working around with the shops and the pubs. Everybody was involved.
It was a lot of years of actually getting all the information, getting all the things that we needed to do to prove to the big lottery funding that we actually had a valid case for it. So I think from 2011 right the way through, then the project didn't actually kick off until 2016.
Yeah, we put in fact the very first application we put in was turned down.
Yes.
So we had a little bit of rejigging, but they were very positive about the project, but they just sort of said, oh, you know, we need a little bit more detail here. And because it was a capital build, there was a little bit of information there that we hadn't quite got together. So we resubmitted that in 2015.
Yes.
And then we were successful in January, I think, of the 2016, weren't we?
It was hurrah! Yeah. It was fantastic. It was so exciting.
Yeah.
There were two phases actually, because the playground, which was Ceri's baby and all the outside stuff, that was done first.
That was quite a quick fix, actually.
Yes, that was.
So we got that completed. And then celebrated with an opening in the Easter, I think, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Of 2017, yes. So
yeah.
Easter time, the playground was done 2017, but the whole part was a much, much bigger project. That was finished just in time for an opening in the September of 2017. And we had a big community tea party. We had hundreds of people come along. It was fantastic, but the opening was brilliant. We had Becky James, world cyclist champion, and Rob Davis, who was a gold Paralympian, and they both came along to help us open the hall part of the Totally Talybont project. But apart from ensuring that the playground, the hall has got a future and is structurally okay and financially more viable, you definitely can see that people are more active. It's really ticked the box from that point of view. We wanted to see people using it more, didn't we? And the hall is being used more. It's a very attractive proposition now to come in and use that facility. It's warm, it looks nice, there's somewhere to park your car. People are talking really positively about Talybont, and you go out and people say, oh, you're so lucky, you live in Talybont, you know, you've all got all these things happening, you know, you've got a nice community spirit, there are lots of clubs now, we have our community cinema, people coming to do exercise there, not just in the hall, people are exercising outside of the hall. I actually saw an old lady using the trim trail to learn to ride a bike the other day, so it's fantastic. So yeah, we're really lucky that it's been so successful.